Everybody, welcome to Carry On Accessibility. Today I have two wonderful, crazy, mischievous, infamous, famous, whatever you want to call them, the king and queen of Double Tap
Hey,
Podcast.
hey, I don't think I like that.
Well, we know who the queen is.
I'm the king. Hello, Carrie. How are you?
Wait a second. I put headlines on the two of you.
Oh,
you're
right.
the queen, Shaun,
Steven.
and Steven is the king.
Thank you, thank you. I am the
right.
king of my own room. Yeah. Of my own world. Hi, Carrie. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I got here a few minutes ago, and I was scrambling because I was on Uber. Uber canceled on me, so
Oh,
I
that's
had
typical.
to wait and wait and wait. Yeah. But anyway, today I wanted to talk about the two of you because I was on your podcast a few weeks ago now, right? And you grilled me on Android. So I wanted to return the favor.
Oh, we love Android.
This is
No,
revenge.
I need to ask you this, Carrie. I'm very sorry about this, but I have to ask you this question. So I'm holding in my hand up to the camera. This is called an iPhone. Now, what this is the best
my eyes.
smartphone.
My eyes, they're
No,
burning.
don't look directly at it, Carrie. Don't look directly at it. But this will change your life. I'll show you the logo on the back just to prove to you the wonderfulness that is. Have you bought one yet?
I have one. I
You've
told
got
you
one.
this on
I know,
the
but that's a
podcast.
test. That's a test one, right? That's not really a proper one.
It's a very proper one. It's an iPhone 14 Pro Max. How
I feel tense.
much more
I'm
proper
nervous.
can you go?
Accessibility folder.
You see?
12 apps.
See?
That's actually quite impressive. You've got an iPhone 14 Pro Max for testing. Wow.
Well, I have to get the best, right?
Did they send you that?
No.
Oh, hang on.
We're in a different league here. That was a
Hey,
little bit hesitant.
why do we not? Is that because we're not on YouTube?
Yeah, we're not on that there. YouTube. Hello, YouTube. This is good,
He's been
isn't
wanting
it?
to say that all day.
Oh my goodness.
Feels like we've made it now. We're on YouTube. I've
I
got to
think
say.
so. Yeah. I've never really been on YouTube before.
No, YouTube. Should we say it again?
Yes, YouTube has never seen anything like the two of you. So
No, that's for sure.
Oof,
That is
dear.
very sure.
Faces
Kings
for
and Queens
radio.
of Double Tap. Yeah, exactly. Faces for radio for sure.
Sorry, carry on.
okay,
If
so
you can.
so tell me, the two of you, how did it even start? Like Double Tap. How did you even get into radio, and why do you do it?
Well, I'll let Shaun go first because they always ask me this question, and I think
Bless
Shaun
you,
should go
Shaun.
first on this one.
Oh, all right. I'm thrown under the bus. Well,
Mhm.
I got into it. Firstly, I got into podcasting just by a group of friends, really. We always talked about tech. You know what it's like when the iPhone, especially, I hate to use that word. Sorry, Carrie. The iPhone came out and there was just so much buzz in our community about it. So we were talking as a group of friends, and then we just started to record it and, started podcasting. And one of my little demos caught the ear of a certain top quality broadcaster called Steven Scott. And I don't know, some Scottish fellow.
Must be another one.
Yes. And he got in contact with me. And really, that's just how it all started. I was on a guest on his show. And then I just came back and back and back. And then he wouldn't let me leave. And yes,
Sums it up pretty well.
hence we moved on from there to other shows, and it's just evolved to where it's at today, which is Double Tap with AMI Audio, which is a daily show. Wow. But yeah, we love it.
Yeah, we do, and it's interesting. Shaun is very modest about his part in all of this, and quite right so, because you wouldn't want to be over egging that particular pudding, would you? But he's such a great guy, and we're friends, and I think that's the thing. We connected over the subject of white canes. We were both at that point using our white cane very sparingly, and we would go out, and when we'd come back home, we would actually get to the beginning of our street, so not come into the street, but actually just to the entrance of our street, and we'd put the white cane away, we'd fold it up, put it in our bag, hide it from other people, because the neighbours would have no idea with us
Shame.
walking into the wrong house, or walking up the wrong drive, trying to put the key in the wrong door, saying hello to a lamppost, whatever it was. no one would figure out that we were visually impaired, right? But we in our heads, I think, just wanted to hide it a little bit. We just couldn't come to terms with ourselves. And so we clicked on that. We really clicked on that point. And I'd heard Shaun do a demo. It was on something to do with Windows 10. And he made me laugh. He just made me laugh. And he continues to this day to make me laugh. He is my dancing monkey. It is brilliant.
Quite right. Dancing Monkey Queen.
I need to change the headline again.
Yeah, gotta change it again. Dancing Monkey Queen. There you go. But honestly, the whole show thing. We do the show, and it's funny. You know you're having a lot of fun when you actually forget you're on air and you forget that you're doing this and that you're supposed to be professional about it.
Yes, we can tell.
Yeah, because you just love it, right? It's not, and if you're having fun and you're kind of forgetting that, you're doing it right. That's what I think, because we are so lucky, and we really are lucky to have such a wonderful audience that follow us, who put up with our nonsense. Sometimes like to hit us back for it. Sometimes get on with it. Usually is the response. But
yes,
God bless you, Mr. F.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, God bless you, Mr. F. But we do.
I always wanted to say that.
Yeah,
well done.
But honestly, we get such fun because the audience they get in touch, they interact. They're way smarter than us, and they give us so much content and feedback. And what I think about the audience interaction is, it's not like someone feeding into a show or feeding back to a show. They're part of the show. Everyone's part of it. We will actually, and I will go out sometimes and reply back to audience members and say, hey, could you help me with something because I'm a bit confused or stuck? And I really love that fact. It's a friendship, it's a community. We are very lucky, and we don't even take it lightly that we are invited into people's homes essentially every day, and we talk, and we're allowed to be part of their world. And for a lot of people, a lot of people out there who are lonely, who don't have anyone else, and sadly, they've chosen us for their benefit, I guess.
Sorry.
Yeah, but we do. We have so much fun, and we love it. And I'm proud to do the show. I really am.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I love it because I feel the same way about my community, and I don't really know a lot of things, but like I will go to other people that are part of the audience and ask them questions, and that's what I do with Steven and Shaun too. I'm like, well, let me find out from Steven.
Well, I've emailed you. I've just emailed you recently about a very interesting topic around Android, and we're trying to find an answer for our listener on this one, and I think that's what it's about. I think when I started out doing this, it was kind of started out because the story of the show and how it all came to be, because bear in mind, when I started doing Tech Talk on RNIB, that was over 10 years ago now. And when I had gone to the bosses at the time, the bosses who were in charge of the radio station at the time, they said, look, come on, don't be silly. No one is going to listen to a show that's an hour long all about tech. That's just boring. No one's going to listen to that. And I was quite convinced they were wrong. And I said, look, just honestly, give me some time on this and I'll prove you wrong. And my boss said to me at the time, okay, look, there's an hour at like 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Just don't muck it up, right? Just get on there, but don't screw anything up. So I did. I took the chance. And that's pretty much been my career all along, has been just getting chances and just pushing and pushing and pushing people and saying, give me a chance. I'll show you I can do this. And as visually impaired people, we kind of know ourselves how important it is for us to push ourselves in ways, because so many people have so few expectations and so limited expectations of us, that it really is important sometimes for you to push yourself. And you have to. So I did. And on the case of Tech Talk, I took that show from, being nothing, with no response, no reaction, no nothing. And it became the station's biggest show. And the same is happening with Double Tap. It's becoming huge, and it's becoming an audience. And it's not about me, and it's not about Shaun. What it is, though, is the way that we're bringing tech to the audience. We're making it about the audience. We're having a conversation about something that's really meaningful in people's lives. And, there are so many podcasts now, so many shows on mainstream technology. But you really do need a show like Double Tap, like Carrie on Accessibility. You need these channels because there are things that we can talk about that nobody in the mainstream world will talk about. Mm-hmm. Braille's a good example, right? Who in the mainstream world is going to talk about Braille, and why would they? It's not relevant to the mainstream audience, which is huge compared to us. So these channels need to exist, and thankfully what I've seen over the years is a growth in the number of these kind of shows coming along. So we see more and more and more podcasts, YouTube shows. I think about Sam and the Blind Life, for example. You know, what a fantastic YouTube channel that guy's created. And, you know, I just want to see more and more of it. And anyone who comes to me and says, hey, should I make a podcast? There's so many podcasts out there. My response is, well, no one ever turned around to an author and said, there's no point writing any more books. Have you seen the libraries? They're full of them. You just wouldn't do that, right? So, of course, just make more content, try things. It doesn't have to be hugely professional or, you know, the best of equipment to make it. Just grab your iPhone. Sorry, Carrie. Grab an Android phone and try and figure out how to use that to record. And when you do, you know, stick it up the internet and see what happens. That's it.
Tech guru Stephen Scott there. Stick it up the internet and see what happens. There you go, people.
Yeah, and you really have to stick with it though, because sometimes it might not be, you know, people might not find it right away. And I totally agree with you, Stephen, because so many people think that they don't have anything to add to the conversation because there's people like me and you and Sam and Blind Abilities and all these different podcasts. But everybody carries their own experience, their own thoughts, their own personality to all of these shows or YouTube videos. And not everybody can touch on every single piece of assistive tech, accessibility, anything to do with our community. And I think that I really encourage everybody. I would love to see more people in this space. And I think that it would actually be beneficial for you and me to work together to have more people so that we can together have more of a voice to talk to companies. And from what I've seen, they see us as a different category of creators. Like they would never go to another, like, just, I guess, quote, regular creator and be like, hey, here's like this thing, I'll let you borrow it, just take a video. And they would there would be different expectations. And I think that we need to raise the bar when it comes to companies and creators for our community. That's what I would love to see. And yes, you can record with an Android phone, Stephen. By the way,
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yes, you can. It's an
It's got a
amazing
microphone
thing.
in there. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's got several.
Yeah, but they don't work, right? They're just there for aesthetics.
Don't listen to him. He loves Android, really.
No, we gotta get Steven a Samsung phone. Because
No,
I know
well,
he
actually,
has a Pixel.
I'll be honest, Carrie. I have my phone right here, and I can't deny it's talking away just now. I love it. It's my Google Pixel 6a. I honestly, the Samsung thing's really interesting for me because I think we did touch on this when you had you on the show, and we've talked about this with other people. There was a very short period of time where it was like Samsung was the phone to get if you were buying an Android, and I don't know if that's the case now. There's so much confusion around what Samsung TalkBack is, how it is compared to Google, you know, Android's own original version. You know, ours I like to call it TalkBack Classic. You know, so there's a lot of
Galaxy
difference.
Store versus Play Store.
Yes, and even though there are differences, I've just sat down and my dad is an iPhone user. He also has a Pixel, and something that we basically went over is the differences between the responsiveness with an iPhone, his Pixel, my Pixel, and my Galaxy. And to be pretty frank, when you're holding it like isolated, it's hard to tell the difference. But when you compare them, the Samsung is just honestly a lot more responsive than the Pixel in my experience. Even if it is a delayed version of TalkBack, even if it's the Galaxy Store version, even with all these compromises, it's still more responsive.
But hang on, can I just pick you up on this? And again, we talked about this on the podcast, but I think it's important to say this. I think when it comes to low vision, and you're not using TalkBack every day, are you? You're using it.
I use it every day, but I don't use it 100%.
Yeah, you could have turned it on and off as you need it, right? But when you're in those low vision moments, shall we say, which is also a podcast on AMI, by the way, you should go check out. But just a little guy, little dig in there as well. Any opportunity for a plug? But if you, in those low vision moments, you're using a phone, you probably want something that can get really high quality visuals, and the Samsung delivers on that. The screen is excellent, right? So large text. I remember when vision was a bit better, and I had the Samsung Galaxy. I want to say S10. So it's going back a bit, but
Oof.
that was a brilliant phone. The screen on that was stunningly good, and I can
Samsung
only
always
imagine it's
leads the
got
way with
better.
display. I mean,
Oh,
that the
sexy
iPhone
hardware, right?
has
Yeah.
a Samsung display, right? I
Yeah, but
mean,
not the best one. I think that Samsung
of
clearly keep the
course.
best ones for themselves.
I think Samsungs are great. I've got a Samsung S21 here and a Pixel 6 or 5. I can't actually remember. And the Samsung hardware itself, the handset, it's beautiful, so nice, and I love the hardware. For me though, it's just about the pure, vanilla stock version of Android that the Pixel runs.
Mhm.
I just always prefer that over anything that's had to go through the manufacturer first and had any changes made to it. That's not to say the changes are necessarily bad or whatever, but I just like
It can
Android
be.
how it was,
Mhm.
how Google intended, say it that way. And you're probably right about responsiveness, depending on which version you're using and what the processor is in the handset, it could entirely be more responsive than the Pixel. But for me, I just find the experience of the usability of it, as in knowing exactly what's going to be where. I do really love the Pixel range. But then again, as you said, I think the Samsung hardware is second to none, really, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I've just pre-ordered the Pixel Fold, and we're gonna see what that's going to be
Wow,
like, and
Wow.
yeah.
we're on a different level here, Stephen.
Yeah,
What's going on here? That's an
but this
expensive
is
phone.
but this goes back to the point, right, about having different voices. I mean, as much as I would love to go out and test the Pixel Fold, I don't think there's much value in me testing it, to be totally honest. And I think for you, it'll be really interesting to hear what you've got to say on this, which means basically that's an open invite to come back on. It may saves me also spending $1,800 on it, so I'm quite happy about that.
Yeah, definitely. I'd definitely be up for that. Now, I want to ask you guys, and I want you guys to be honest. Steven, before today, when was the last time that you pulled out your Pixel?
I had no idea where that sentence was going, and I have to say I was getting scared. So I
Pixel.
it's a
Carry on.
it's a really interesting question actually, because Shaun and I just in the last 2 weeks we've
Yep.
really been delving into the world of Android on the Pixel. So in the past couple of weeks, kind of fueled by Google I/O. I always feel whenever Google I/O is on, I feel it's appropriate to order a Chinese, and also to get my Pixel phone out and charge it up so that it's usable.
Take out the drawer.
Yeah, exactly. Do the 8 million system updates that it seems to want to do, and then carry on from there. But yeah, I have been mucking around with it because I kind of wanted to get back in and just see how TalkBack is behaving. Also, 13.1 came out, some interesting updates in TalkBack there. And the split tab was interesting. Kind of disappointed by it, if I'm honest, because it's keyboard specific and not over the entire system. I was really hoping it would be like split tab over the whole system, which the iPhone has and has had for years, and is brilliant. Once you've had that experience, it's quite kind of hard to go back and not have it. And I have on my left hand, unfortunately, an essential tremor. It's not essential to me. I make that joke every time. But it drives me insane sometimes. It's because it is a irritating tremor, and it causes issues when I'm typing and stuff. But it really does have an issue with the old double tapping experience, and I use my left hand for that. So, having the split tap means I can keep one finger on the screen and then tap on the screen with the other. Great for typing on the Pixel, and I have to say that has made a huge difference. One of my big bugbears of Android was trying to type on it. That has made a difference. So they've clearly done some work on that. Overall responsiveness, good. I mean, I'm trying to think, is it the vocalizer voices we use, Shaun? I think it's the vocalizer ones I have on mine.
I used to. I don't anymore. I just use the Google services, the Google TTS.
I think it's okay. I prefer Ava if I'm going to be on that, or anything else than the Google TTS. To be perfectly honest. What about you, Carrie? What are you using?
Nathan's my favorite, which is
Nathan's good,
also the name of my nephew. which is
Oh, that's
funny.
nice. Yeah.
Oh, a bit of nepotism in your TTS. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, listen,
Exactly.
today's show, Shaun wants to create not only his own TTS, but himself as a TTS. So what does
Yeah.
that tell you?
Oh, absolutely. If you can clone your own voice, I want to use that as part of voiceover. I want to listen to myself. Yeah, saying back, it actually sounds bad. That sorry.
Yeah, I've created
Change
a
my
monster,
mind.
Carrie. Created a monster. He is the true queen.
What you guys have to do is make your voices into a TTS engine and then sell it to, the
Each other.
listeners. To each other.
We're the only ones that would buy them. Yes,
No one's going to
absolutely.
buy that, Carrie. Come on. No one wants to hear this voice on this barking out their phone at them. Nobody needs that.
Do you already hear it too much? Is that it?
Well, I hear myself too much. I don't know about anyone else. My wife certainly hears way too much of it. So yeah, I think it's unlikely. But no, I do love the Pixel phone, and I think that the only thing that bothers me about it, honestly, and maybe the 7A would be a better example of this, because I think the 7A is smaller than this. I've got the 6A. Is the size. I just find that these are just
Really?
too big for me. Yeah, but again, it's this problem I've got with the left hand. So for me, it's just difficult. I had to get rid of the Pro Max for that reason. I'm back on the 13 Mini at the
the
moment on
mini.
the iPhone.
Is the mini smaller than the SE, or which one's smaller?
No,
I
that's
think
interesting.
It is. I think
Kind
it
of
is smaller
similar
than the
size.
SE.
It's a little bit smaller, yeah.
Yeah.
There's more of a bezel on the SE.
I see. Okay. What about you, Shaun? When was the last time that you really, before you guys started to delve into Android?
No, that's different. Before
When?
we delved in, well, last time, as Steven said, was a few weeks ago, and that was for me. That was mainly for Mastodon. We were trying out Mastodon, and
I
the
see.
app on Android is
Yeah.
amazing, so accessible. I really like it. But before that, actually, I did swap over to Android for quite a long time, and I can't remember.
Really?
I think it was the iPhone, around iPhone 7 or 8. I was just so bored with the
Oh,
iPhone because
Yeah.
the next one comes out, the next one comes, and it's like there's no real difference. And the home screen was always the same, and I was just frankly bored. I was looking at the Samsungs at the time, thinking, "Wow, that just looks so nice." So I did swap over for a while, and you know what? It's that comfort zone. As simple as that. I mean, we're having a bit of joke here about iPhone versus Android, right? And then that false animosity about it, and it's all terrible, but it's not. It's accessible and it works well. But it's just that comfort zone. Whatever you start with is what you tend to stick with. But I actually found a lot of things about Android that I preferred. I preferred the Facebook app, the YouTube app on Android over iOS.
really?
Yeah, I
'Cause
really
I
like.
prefer that on iPhone.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just whatever, whatever works for you. On YouTube, I'll tell you what did it for me for YouTube, and it's such a little thing, was the ability to hide the controls. There was a button when you're watching a YouTube video to hide controls. And at that time, I had enough vision that I used to look at the screen. And I loved that. That's not available on iPhone. I think in the last update on iPhone now, you can tap where it says video and the controls actually disappear. But other than that, the controls are always there and the background video is dimmed. So you couldn't watch it. You had to turn voiceover off and tap that. So, and it was just that little extra feature that was on the Android app, which I thought, oh man, this makes the experience so much nicer. And it's just those little things that can make a huge difference. So yeah, I used Android for quite a while, and then I can't even remember how, but I did go back to the. I think Steven sent me an iPhone.
Oh,
I
it's
think
Steven's
right.
fault.
Yeah,
I
Okay.
think he's like, yes, he tempted me back and he sent me an iPhone and I went back. But the trouble is, you see, you invest in the ecosystem, don't you? You buy all these apps and everything. So you sort of, and plus your circle of friends, if they're all using iMessage, I mean, that's, WhatsApp and apps like that sort of get around that to a large extent. But
I don't get the fascination with iMessage. I'm sorry. Okay, so I have switched to iPhone for a while. I've tried iMessage. I'm like, what is the big deal about this? Who cares if it's green or blue? Or I didn't find anything
absolutely, there's no big deal about
noteworthy.
iMessage whatsoever.
Okay.
It's not the greatest app in the world at all. The thing is that if all your friends are using it, and if you're using it on a Mac as well, if you have a Mac, the integration about being able to message from your Mac to your friends on the iPhone using iMessage, it's just that integration is really cool, and it's something.
Yeah, you can do that with Facebook Messenger. You could do that
but
with Google.
yeah.
But it was actually
Messages. You
more
could do
about
that with WhatsApp and Unigram, Telegram.
We're a little bit older than you, Carrie, and I remember there was a time when it used to cost money if you sent a message to someone who wasn't an iPhone user. So you'd have
But
to
we don't live in
actually.
that time anymore.
We don't,
Yes,
but I
That was
think,
a
Stephen,
really
get with the
long
times.
time ago.
but I think these things stick, and I think it becomes that thing where you feel like, oh, I must stick with this. It's interesting because funny enough, this came up in my mind earlier today for some reason. I was thinking about my relationship with the iPhone, and then thinking actually it goes
Your
deeper than that because
relationship.
my
This is
relationship.
really
Well,
deep.
I kind of is, right, because I started out with Mac at school. So where a lot of people might have used PCs at school, or in our case in the UK, we had these BBC computers, which were blooming awful. They were just basic DOS-based systems, really, weren't they? I mean,
I remember them. Don't you
Yeah.
diss them? They were nice.
I mean, they were nice, but you would never go back to using one today, right? I mean,
No,
why would you, right? Big, massive floppy disks at 5.25 inch. It was ridiculous. But
we're losing the youth here. We're
yeah,
losing the
Sorry,
younger audience.
I know. The young
Keep it up,
people are all
come on.
saying, "What on earth is this guy talking about?" Oh, all right, Grandpa, we'll be talking about gramophones next.
What are
But
gramophones? No, just kidding.
don't even go there, right? Just don't even go there. But no, I remember at school we had the Macs, and it was the going back to, I had the LC2, we had the Mac SE, which was not the iPhone SE, but the Mac SE, which was a tiny little grayscale computer, and I did all my schoolwork on that, did my exams on it. I had one of the very first MacBooks, which were called PowerBooks back then. PowerBook 190C, which my first was a 145. If you really want to get nerdy. It had a grayscale screen and an actual ball for the mouse, like an actual ball
made of stone,
where the trackpad was nowadays. Unbelievably solid machine, by the way. You could whack. I mean, you think Lenovo are solid? This thing you could chuck it out of the top of a skyscraper and it would be fine when it reached the bottom. But my relationship began there, and all through my life, I've had these experiences with Mac, and of course the cute cuddly little iMacs came in, and then the iPod came in, and then eventually the iPhone came in. And I remember getting really annoyed when people who used to really diss the Mac would walk in with an iPhone, and you'd be like, Apple's spoiled it now. You've made it mainstream. This is terrible.
Oh, you were one of those who used to follow the cool band, and then as soon as it got popular, I don't like them anymore.
I love country music, right? And the reason I love country music is for two reasons. One, I like the songs. I like being depressed. And secondly, if, by the way, it's true, if you play a country music song backwards, you get a happy ending. But what I would say is that when it comes to country music, one thing I love about it is no one else likes it. So you can have it to yourself. You're not being deluged by it on the radio every day. You know, maybe you are in Nashville, but not here.
Yeah, I was going to say, yes, apart from the huge amount of people that do like it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think what he's saying,
but
Carrie,
it's a bit concentrated, right?
What he's saying is he's always been an Apple fanboy since birth. That's it.
Yes, and I'm sure that he picks each and every one of the Apple products up and, like, cuddles with it every night.
Not far off.
Let's not think about it.
I am a fanboy, but not enough. And that's the thing, right? As you grow up, you try different things, you try different systems. Android is great. And I think that, we do joke a lot about Android in the show, but and I joke about it because I know I'm never going to use Android every day. I'm just not. I'm not going to. There's no point pretending that I will, but I will try it out. I will compare it. There was a time, and it wasn't that long ago, when TalkBack wasn't that great. And it didn't compare. And things, but it has improved considerably. And if someone was starting out today in the world of smartphones, I'd say, yeah, look, you know what? There's choice now, and the choice is comparable. I would say you get more choice with Android, because one thing you guys have that we don't have is the choice of handsets. We just have one, or the same thing in different small, medium, large, and that's it. It's just and that's one thing I'm quite jealous of, is the choice you guys have in terms of handsets.
But
then you've got to use Android on them, so then I feel better about it.
I feel like as blind people, we often have to compromise. We have to kind of pick which one we want, and there's always, I feel like there's always something wrong with it. and we just kind of have to live with whatever that is, whether it's Mac. And I mean,
Yeah.
I will listen to your podcast, so I've heard all these like little issues that you have with voiceover. And then same thing with the PC, right? There's always
Mm-hmm.
some certain problems. It doesn't have apps like the Mac does, and all this blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And it's very similar with Android. Like this particular handset doesn't have an updated talkback, but this one is more responsive. And then like with an iPhone, it's just boring. Yeah, you know, if you want to be boring, you go with the iPhone. Go ahead. And
I
there's
can't believe
always
I can't believe I'm spending my evening listening to this.
Yeah.
and it always feels like we have to pick and compromise. Do you guys feel that way?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, but I just think there's not one perfect solution, and I think that's, even if you take accessibility out of the picture, I think that's the case for, you know, even mainstream. I don't think anyone's perfectly happy with one solution. There's always something you look at the other side and go, "Ooh, I wish mine did that."
Yes,
So,
but a lot of the time that's preference. Whereas we have to deal with whatever accessibility issue. Like we can't access certain parts of the product, or we have trouble with this particular part versus that. And it's not just about we like that thing better than the other thing.
no, you're right. But at the same time, there's frustrations on the Mac that you wouldn't find on Windows, and vice versa.
Hmm.
There's never the perfect accessible solution at all. There's always some workaround that you got to do on whatever system you pick, and then which system you're on, you know, you're always looking for other options out there. You're right, but I don't know if there's ever a way around that. I don't think accessibility. Oof, man, this is going to be controversial. I don't think accessibility is anywhere near the level it needs to be where we can say I'm happy with this platform.
So this
I
is
don't know if we will get there.
Sean's favorite topic, I think. Do you think
Oh,
AI will solve it?
oh, AI. Oh, there's not enough talk about AI. That's what I think. Yes, I actually do. I think AI is it's just mind blowing at the minute, right? We're just scratching the surface of this new stage of AI, because we've had AI and talk about AI, machine learning, and neural networks for the longest time. But it's not until this Chat GPT came out, and it's like, okay, this is a whole different playing field now. These responses and the way it's translating between different, you know, images to text or to audio or making videos, it's amazing. And I think this new level of AI, this is where we can see, well, hang on, this could make a huge difference when it comes to any assistive tech. It's and not even assistive tech. I think the whole lines and the borders between mainstream and assistive tech can become sort of blurred and generally disappear, because suddenly your OS is powered by AI, and because of that, it is accessible by its very nature, almost like, you know, smart speakers. The any smart speaker really, it wasn't designed with accessibility in mind. It's just because of how it works, it is accessible. I think that's how OS, you know, Windows or Mac or whatever it's going to be, I think that's the way it's going to go. And because of that, accessibility is just going to sort of be baked in. And I think AI is going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I think, you know, the smart speaker is a great example of it, because, you know, I think about the way I use my Amazon Echo at the moment, and I think, yeah, okay, it does a lot of great things. It could do a lot more. But I think if you apply that logic, if you think about AI and what it's capable of today, and the examples of how it's capable, I mean, even if we look at something like the Be My Eyes virtual volunteer beta that's ongoing,
Yeah,
and
that's
how that is, are you on there?
yeah, I
Yeah,
am
so
now. Thank you,
it's brilliant.
Steven.
Yeah, yay. But honestly, it's brilliant, right? It is so good. And what that shows is the capability. Now, if you then take that and you apply what you can do with a smart speaker, and we can essentially talk through what they call ambient computing, which is basically just talking into the air and getting a response. If you can give that brain that you're talking to as much information as possible, then Sean's right. Suddenly the line between what is accessible and what isn't just goes away. I mean, if I can, I can use Virtual Volunteer today to snapshot an image of a menu, and no longer have to listen from top left to bottom right of every single thing that's on that menu. I can say, where's the chicken? How much is that dish? What are the desserts? I ask that question a lot. What
I
drink
didn't know
options are there?
KFC had desserts. No, just kidding.
Oh well, yeah, and the ones I do go to, they do. But yeah, I mean, honestly, the capability is just incredible, and when you can build all that together, and I do see AI as very much, especially with all these things we're hearing about, it's a connection of dots, just a connection of dots across the entire ecosystem of computing, ambient computing, voice, everything. Because what essentially AI has created, and what has happened through OpenAI, for example, is that they've turned everything into language. That's essentially it.
Yeah.
So everything is a language. Speech is a language, video is a language, image is a language, text is a language. Everything becomes a language. And therefore you can create tools that can interpret all of that. And because you've seen everything in the same light, it actually allows them to move much quicker, which is why we're moving at such a pace with AI. It's why everything's going so quickly, because everything is running at the same pace. And I have to say, though, and for people who are listening and watching this, they might be thinking to themselves, I don't really know much about this, or I don't fully get it. That's okay. All right? That's really okay, because honestly, we live in this every day. I read 10 to 20 articles a day, and I still cannot keep up. I still can't understand all of it either. And I mean, when I hear them talk on that Google I/O event about Bard this and Palm that, and I'm thinking, what on earth is all this stuff? But these are the brains that will bring all this technology to the fore. And at this stage, we're very much in the foundation stage. This is like, we're building the building as we speak. So, the concrete's going in, the metal frame is being built, and all of that, all these names that are attached to things are all those things. But none of that we'll see when this is built, because that's the foundation. But it's exciting.
Yes, so I love it, and I'm really excited about it. For example, the whole Be My Eyes virtual volunteer, it can interpret things for you. It can do research for you, but I'm waiting for the day that it can actually do more. For example, where you can only tell it what to do and it'll go do that. So, I mean, I know right now they're working on it and it's going to soon be a reality. But like we mentioned, I think we even talked about it in our podcast, or maybe it was a different episode. But what if instead of waiting for an accessible video editor, which I don't know if we'll ever get, imagine if we could just tell and whatever, if it's writing keyboard or out loud, the AI, okay, make sure to cut out all the places that I stumble and that I started again. Put in some titles in there, make it look nice. Put some B-roll in there. Just figure out what kind of B-roll. Just do it. Just make this video and imagine that it would be able to do that. Or,
Can, Carrie. It can do that today. That exists,
but not commercially. Not like
not
consumer.
commercially. No,
not consumer level.
But look, the speed we are moving at here, the fact that it's capable today, the brain is capable of doing that. Someone actually gave a demo of exactly that. They put into the prompt, and I think the key for AI going forward for all of us is going to be learning how to prompt properly, how to ask the right question, which, if you think back, was kind of the same thing we all had to learn with Google. The amount of people, I actually thought, I remember when Google wasn't long, it was fairly new, and I remember thinking I could have a career teaching people the right questions to ask this thing, because people would sit at the computer and they'd be like, okay, so I want to know when the next train to Aberdeen is, and what will I ask it? And I'm like, you've just asked the question. That's it. Just put that in. Now, this goes further, obviously, because you have to give it more information. You have to give it more data. And you have to say things like, okay, imagine yourself as a video editor. Your job is going to be to cut this video up for me. I need to cut the first 10 seconds off. I want you to add some nice music that's got strings in it. I want you to put some B-roll in that's according to the video. You can give it, but it's all about the prompts. And if you get that right, then you will get that. And of course, with video creation capabilities coming as well, where it can actually build the video, actually make it. You can just make the video.
Hang on.
There. No, it's kind of getting there.
Carrie disagrees.
So far. No. I agree. I'm just saying it's not there yet. It's totally not there.
No,
yet,
it's
right?
not there yet. No.
But
But in
No,
2
but the
years' time,
functionality
in 2
is
years'
there.
time,
Mhm.
it would not
That's the
surprise me
thing.
that we'll
Yeah.
be seeing a Hollywood movie made by AI.
Yeah, but I would love if we had to think less for prompting it.
Thinking
Imagine
less. I'm all for it. I'm right.
imagine we didn't have to phrase it in a particular way. I mean, it's a lot looser now, right, than when we
Hmm.
use Google search, and it's a lot
Yeah.
better when we talk to ChatGPT. But imagine if it goes a step further and you could just, I don't know, it
Oh,
can
we'll get there.
infer, yeah,
Yeah.
which will
Yeah.
probably be a scary,
But
scary
it's
world.
interesting to hear younger people talk about it because they want things to move so quickly, right? And I get it. I'm with you on it. But I'm also kind of thinking, I remember the days when I had to go into a library. That's a place where books live, right? And
Oh,
you know,
really?
you would
That's a
go in
place?
there. It's incredible. And you would go in there and you'd have to go to the shelf and you'd have to take this thing called a book off the shelf.
Ran
This is for
on
the
your
kids.
own.
The shelf.
This
What's
is
a
the
shelf?
kids. This is for the kids on YouTube. I'm teaching you here, right? This is vital gold. You need to learn this. So you know, you take the book off the shelf. You'd have to open the book with your hands, and there's no.
I've
And
never
there was
used
a
that before.
there was a touch screen interface of sorts. You would touch the pages and turn them, and there was information on there, and you could consume that information. But you had to source it all and find it. Then we move on to I can just literally sit at a keyboard and ask a question, and the information surfaces. And that's incredible. And now we've moved so far forward. Google
Mhm.
allowed us not to remember anything anymore. And AI for me is going to stop us doing anything anymore because it will just do it for us. And I think that's good. I think that we're far away from the idea of robots roaming and taking over the world. I don't think that's likely. What I do think, though, is that
Let's
a lot
revisit
of
that
jobs
in
will
5
disappear.
years.
Well, yeah, let's see.
If they let us,
Absolutely.
our robot overlords. Yes, we'll come back
Yeah,
to
they'll
that.
be in charge of YouTube at that point, so we'll let us on.
Oh my goodness, this has definitely been such a fun conversation. You guys are awesome. I did want to also touch on the Apple News today, and I don't know. I feel weird because this live stream has been a lot about Apple and Apple products, but oh well, I'll live with it.
That not allowed. Sorry. Sorry.
But what did you think about the Apple News? And can you go ahead and share it? Because I've only seen the headlines, and I'm sure the two of you, especially Stephen, knows them more than I do.
Well,
Hang on. How was I thrown under the bus there?
Well,
What?
you too,
Especially
Sean.
Steven. Yeah, actually, to be truthful, yeah, he does. Steven,
Okay.
take it away.
okay, fine. Yeah, so interestingly, Apple held an event last night, and in fact, it's happening again tonight, where they held briefings for press to learn about these amazing new features that they're bringing out. There are a number. Most notably for visually impaired people, one using and you having the iPhone 14 Pro Max, you'll be able to use this when it comes out later this year. And all these features I'm going to tell you about will come out later this year. Point and Speak is coming. And what that does is it allows you to, for example, with a microwave, using the LiDAR scanner, the camera, the on-machine learning, everything inside the device, you can point your phone using the back camera at your microwave, and you can point at a button. And if there's text above the button that tells you what that button is, say maybe minus 30 seconds or plus 30 seconds or defrost or whatever it might be, you can put your finger there. It will tell you. It will tell you what that button is just by pointing at it, and it will speak it back to you. And I don't think that's just for voiceover. I could be wrong on that, but I don't think you need to have voiceover enabled for that. Although I guess, would you to get to the... No, it's in the magnifier app, which still to this day
It is
The
in
baffles
the
me.
magnifier
magnifier.
app, the whole door detection, object recognition still works
Yeah.
without voiceover, right? So I would think that it
So
would
it should be
work
fine.
whether or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes me think of
Self-voicing, I guess.
Orcam and how you point to things and it'll
Yes.
read from there.
Or the Envision glass is the same sort of thing,
Yeah.
gesture driven. Yeah, but the thing is, it's using the LiDAR to place your finger and, exactly what button. Until we get our hands on it, we don't know exactly how it's going to work, but it seemed to be so exact that you could move your finger, move your finger along a row of buttons, and as you hit the next button, it would read it out and so on. Yeah, this is so useful for appliances, the washing machine, dishwasher, and things like that. This could be really useful. So it's definitely a cool little feature.
Yeah, it is. And the other one, which I think there's lots of features, lots and lots of stuff. One, I think for voiceover users in particular, you'll like, is that you will be able to increase the speed of Siri's voice as well as the voiceover voice. So that's kind of cool. So you can go from 0.8 to 2 times speed. So, at the moment, for example, with Siri, it tends to speak at the normal level, whereas if you have a very fast, speed on your voiceover, it can feel a bit disjointed. So they're bringing that up a little bit, which is good. There's tons and tons of things. The other big feature is assistive access. And what this is ultimately is bringing about what I would call a much more simplified interface to the iPhone. Now, Samsung has this, at least it did have. You can tell me if I'm wrong here or if it still has it. It was called Easy Mode. And
Yes.
is that still a thing? Do they
I
still have that?
I don't know, but I've seen it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's on my current phone or not. Mhm.
So it's got like the big button. So everything is kind
Mhm.
of like, if you take 4
Yeah.
apps, for example, and just imagine them grouped together into one button, it just makes it much larger. They've simplified the interface, but also the apps themselves. So the Apple apps in particular, like calls, iMessage,
See.
photos, camera, essentially giving you a group of apps that you can get on with. Some people might just want that and that's it. But you can add on third-party applications as well. Once you're in assistive tech mode or assistive access mode, what you can do is you can have it set up so that it essentially takes over the system, and any app that has that different view, that different style, can be accommodated and it will work. For example, when you go into calls, instead of having your regular list of calls and then all the tabs at the bottom with all the options, you just have all that's on the screen are maybe 4 or 5 boxes with people's faces, with a name, and once you tap on that face or name, you will then get an option to call them or FaceTime them. So it's keeping the options simple as you navigate through. You can have it in that box format, or you can have it in a grid list format as well. And I think there's some benefits to some voiceover users as well. People who will be in that category of wanting simplicity but wanting to be accessible. So you can
I
win on
think
both
it's
sides.
I think it's fantastic for both kids and seniors especially. I mean, of
Mhm.
course, there'll be other people who might like it as well, but I mean, I have something similar on my Android. It's like a suite of apps, except one cool thing is I had to pay for that. Well, I actually got it for free, but usually people have to
Of
pay
course
for
you did.
that.
Yeah,
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 other
yeah,
people
yeah.
paid for it, yeah.
You know
Yeah.
who I am.
They were funding your experience.
But now what was I saying? But with the Apple experience, that's going to be built in, and I wonder if Google will kind of build that in as well. For Google, there is a way that you can make the icons much larger, but the thing that stands out to me is that they went a step further to make those apps also very simple and easy to use. So that's really cool. I hope that that works on iPad, because right
It
now
does, and it
Yes.
will, yeah.
I basically have my iPad Pro somewhere laying around, and I basically don't ever use it because everything's just so small.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so common a problem,
But
yeah.
I say it's just not for. I mean, assistive access is designed for people with cognitive difficulties. But
Mhm.
I could see so many uses for this as a simplified user interface. I mean, what's not to love
Yeah.
about that? I think you're absolutely right. I think companies like Synaptic and there's a few companies that specialize in sort of guided and simplified access to, like Dolphin Guide, for example, on Windows. I think some companies may be looking at this slightly worried, but I think it's
Mm.
for the end user, it's all good.
Yeah. I wonder if this is just going to be the trend where it's going to be less and less dedicated companies that specialize, and that these larger companies like Google and Apple are just going to integrate it into their software, these kinds of things.
Yeah, the whole specialist versus mainstream argument, which is almost as challenging as the Apple and iPhone or Apple and Android one.
Mm.
It's interesting because there are times, and there certainly are occasions when you can value a specialist piece of tech. And for the sake of argument these days, I tend to take Braille out of this as a discussion point, because I think Braille is a world of its own, and it always will
Mhm.
be, and that's never going to change. But when it comes to something like a Victor Reader Stream or a Victor Reader Trek or a Stellar Trek,
Mm.
or
Or
the
Sense
new ones from
Player.
Hymns. Yeah, the Sense
Mhm.
Player. You know, these are all very interesting devices because they sit alongside your smartphone. Your smartphone can do all this stuff, but these other devices have got the capability in them to do it in a much more accessible way to people. The problem is, and it goes back to your point about compromise, Carrie, is that with the compromise there, you will not get the level of updates and enhancements that you would get on your smartphone because they're building these smartphones. The ecosystem that lives on them is used by so many people. And, whether it's Android or whether it's iPhone, those are the two in charge, right? They are running the show. And everyone else is just trying to keep up. And let's be honest about it. You look at Apple, you look at Google, look at the size of those companies, the amount of people that they have, and Microsoft as well. And you compare that to the staff at Humanware or HIMS, it's never going to match up. It can't. And that's why
their
prices are
accessibility
higher.
department alone is bigger, right?
Yes, yeah, that's
Absolutely.
true.
And when you compare that, when you look at that, it's difficult. It's really difficult for these companies. And I wonder what the landscape will look like. But then again, as challenging as it is, it has to be about the consumer. It has to be about what's right for us. And if people are choosing to go down the route of a smartphone, and I have advocated for many years, whether it's Android, whether it's iPhone, whatever it is, that you're better off beginning the journey of learning these tools. And I say the same about Braille as well. I say learn everything. Learn as much as you can, soak as much knowledge up as you can. But in particular, when it comes to the smart devices, because they are so vital in everyday life, if you need to, mostly everything these days is online, right? I just recently bought a new bed and I cannot contact the company without emailing them or going through a chat bot. I cannot call them. There is no way to contact this company by phone. So I may have my little landline phone sitting there and I pick it up and say, I'm going to call this company, but I can't because how am I going to call them? So I need to have a smartphone or a computer. But for a lot of people, that might just be too far. So I need a smartphone. I need to be connected into this world. I often used to get the argument thrown at me, but what about, an 85-year-old woman who isn't connected into the world, who, doesn't want this stuff or is just not connecting to it? And my argument to that is usually, have you met 85-year-old women who are blind? They're more tech savvy than us, because they know they have to be, right? They know they have to be. They know they need to be connected to this world. And actually, blind people, I think, are at the forefront of that. Oftentimes we're more tech savvy overall. Not everybody, I get it. And it's not an age thing either. I hate that whole thing about it's just about age. It's not.
No.
There are plenty of younger people who are just not engaged in this either. We just don't hear from those people because they're not connected
Yes,
into it.
exactly.
That's true. And there's always going to be a place for assistive tech. I'm thinking of the Blind Shell Classic. How would they be seeing this assistive access model coming to iPhone, iOS 17? I don't think they'll be worried at all because it's all about the form factor as well. They've got the physical buttons.
Yeah,
They've
it's
also
all
got
about those buttons. I love that.
exactly right. Yeah, if someone can't use the touchscreen, it doesn't matter how simple the user interface is. The barrier is the physicality of it. So Blind Shell Classic and things like that, and as Steven said, Braille devices, they're always going to be a market for that. So I think they're always going to be around.
Yeah, I think so. I just feel it shrinking. That's the only thing. I remember years ago, it felt like a lot more people had these. And now it's more like, oh, I have one somewhere. And it's the old one, right?
But is
a lot
that a
of
bad
it is
thing?
really the hardware, the updates, they don't really get updated. They're so much more limited. And while many people can still find that really beneficial and helpful, there's a lot of us, at least for me, that get frustrated because it is limited, right? It's not anything near like what we have on our smartphones.
Yeah.
But it still does have its place.
The market decides, right? If it doesn't work and it's not selling, the company goes away. And that's sad, but that's the reality of it. And I think you're right. What I have seen, though, and it's interesting, you start to see this pivot where you're seeing like the HIMS Sense Player is a good example of this. Companies like Orbit are doing this, others as well, where they're starting to develop. So in terms of Braille, they might think, okay, so Braille displays are quite expensive. Well, we can talk about that. Yeah, I mean, that's not going to be cheap either. But here's an interesting thing. So you have something like the Orbit Writer, which is a keyboard. I actually have another one here as well. Thinking of that, not just the Orbit Writer, but the Hable One. I've got in my hand here.
Yep, right
Hable
here.
One. So this is a Braille input keyboard, right?
I'm the odd one out. I haven't got one. I'm
You
sorry.
got one. Oh. But it's a Braille input keyboard, and that connects to, guess what? The smartphone.
Mhm.
That, to me, is a smart move. I did actually give the company a fantastic line, which was, because you have to hold the Hable in your hand, I suggested to them the tagline should be, you don't need a table when you've got a Hable.
Yes, I heard that.
But
Don't laugh, Carrie. Don't encourage him. It's ridiculous.
they haven't used that line yet. I feel it's coming in marketing. I feel it's coming. But no, I think these companies are smart that are doing that because they're realizing that, look, people are moving to smartphones, but we need to be there beside it. And building these companion devices is a really smart move.
Yes, I would love to see more of that. And hopefully the price as well.
Well, the price
Yeah.
of those is a lot cheaper than a Braille display, right?
Mm.
So
I-
that's something to consider. That
Can you
you are
really
going to.
compare it to a Braille display? Really?
Well, it's not. But it's not a Braille display. I mean, the Hable's not a Braille display.
It's not.
It's a Braille input keyboard. So yeah,
Mhm.
if you want the display and you want the Braille in return, and a lot of people do. At the moment, what is happening is there's a divide occurring between people who are in work and people who are not in work. Because the people who are in work will get funding to some degree. In different parts of the world, there are different options for it, but you will have funding of some kind or a very generous employer who will buy a Braille display for you.
Mhm.
If you're not in work, you've got to try and find $4,000 or $5,000 or upwards.
Never going to happen.
It's not going to happen, no. Because, when you don't have any money coming in, I think you'd probably rather buy food than buy a
Yeah.
Braille display, right?
Mhm.
So there's the problem. So, I mean, it's interesting. There's a great discussion going on about the future of Braille, and everyone always has this, every few years we have this debate about the future of Braille. I do think if Braille devices themselves, there's two things actually. Braille devices have to come down in price considerably. But secondly, that can happen if the first thing's addressed, which is education. If they start getting more children learning Braille, then there'll be a bigger market. It's as simple as that. But at the moment in America, I believe the number, according to the NFB, is 10% of children who are low vision or who are blind are actually being taught Braille. Now, I'm assuming that's 10% who are blind, totally blind, and those who are low vision are not getting taught Braille. That would be my assumption. And I'm on a bit of a one-man crusade here to try and change that because I think all children should be learning Braille irrespective of their level of vision. I'm talking about low-vision children here, not every child, but low-vision kids, the ones who'd often be told, yeah, you don't need it because, your eyesight's fine.
Yes,
you can
see right now.
computers.
We'll just make it really big, and we'll have
Yes,
CCTV.
yeah.
And I mean, I think we're all three of us have been there where our vision got worse. And I
Doctors
same
don't know
here.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't.
Well, even if you're totally blind, right, or incredibly low vision, then I know from first-hand experience, people will say, yeah, you don't need Braille because everything speaks to you now. So, even at that case, Braille is still really hard to get into, which
But
is
again,
crazy.
I would say that it really depends on some people because there are other barriers besides financial. Like some people have retinopathy in their hands and they literally cannot read the Braille, and so not everybody has that option. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's true. I think I suppose I discount that a little bit from the argument because it kind of, if you can't read it, then you're never going to go near it. That's fine. If you can learn it, I think you should be learning it. And I think that's the point. So I think for me, it's about children having the option. I mean, look, as kids, you soak this stuff up. I was talking about this today on an interview that's coming up next week. And, I remember that teacher of mine, she was learning to teach Braille to kids, and she asked me to be her guinea pig. She wanted to trial me on grade 1. So I said, fine, whatever. We did it on the breaks. It was great. And I didn't use Braille after that. Didn't use Braille at all. 25 years later, roughly, I am in a position where I think I really need to start learning this because I think I need it. And I go back and I start learning. And as I'm doing the ABCD, I'm thinking, I know this. This is still in there.
Yeah.
I was remembering it. I was actually in my head, like I could tell the next letter. And I'm thinking, so interesting, right? As a kid, you soak this stuff up, and even if you don't use it, it's
Yes.
still there. We've
It's like
got
my
to do
son.
this.
He is very resistant to Braille, and he doesn't want to read it because he's like, I can see, Mom,
And
that
kids
whole
don't want to do
thing.
anything, Carrie,
But
do they? They want to do nothing.
but
So
then
they're
I had.
terrible.
But what's funny is I got the Hable, and so I had TalkBack going, and I had the Hable, and I was like typing away in Braille, and he's like, no, let me have that. He kept taking it out of my hand, and in a few minutes time, he learned like half the letters.
There you go.
Yeah. It's
And
all
that'll
about
stick with
making it
him.
engaging, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. And the Hable One and devices like that
Yeah.
make it happen.
No, it's not about. No, I'm sorry, it's not. It's not about engaging. It's just teaching. They're kids. They'll pick it up.
But they
No,
will
and
not
they're
learn if they do not. if
He's
they are
like
not
Oliver
engaged.
Twist. He's like one of those horrible characters on there, Mr. Bumblebee or whatever.
Mr. Bumblebee, right?
He's
okay.
there with a stick saying, "You will learn."
That was my education, and it worked. It worked.
I don't know if it did. No, just kidding.
Well, not everything went in. I'll admit that. French, that was interesting. The only thing I ever remember out of French was "Où est la piscine," which means I can basically ask for a
how dare
swimming
you.
pool anytime I go there. But yeah, no, that's Scottish. But
Oh dear. Sorry, Carrie. Carry on.
what is this live stream normally like? Is it normally very centered and well thought out and considered, or is it normally chaotic like this?
No, this is pretty chaotic, but it's fine.
Okay.
It's good.
Okay.
I'll apologize now. I generally most times I leave somewhere I tend to apologize, so maybe I'll just do it in advance.
Well, you're getting quite a few compliments in the live chat that says double tap.
God.
Highlight of my mornings.
Oh, that's nice.
cute.
Is that my mum?
It may have been Sean's.
Yes. Hello, Mum.
Yeah, it wouldn't be my mum. She has no idea how to use YouTube at all. She's got no clue on it.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Well,
That means
thank
a
you
lot.
so much, Steven and Sean. This has been
that it?
such a fun conversation. Can you believe it? It's been an hour. It's been
What
over
happens
an
now?
hour.
Does Taxi Cab Confessions on next? What happens? What's on
Yes.
now?
I have no idea.
Right.
We'll have AI figure it out.
Okay. Up next, the Waltons on YouTube TV.
Oh my
Thank you,
goodness.
Carrie. It's been
Golden
fun.
Girls.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Steven. Make
you,
sure to
Carrie.
check out Double Tap Podcast. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, pretty much everywhere that podcasts are available. Is that right?
Sums it up. Yep.
Okay, good.
Pretty much.
And check out the whole AMI network because they have a lot of different podcasts and a lot of different shows that are really.
We are
really...
not representative of AMI. These are sensible people we work with,
Yes.
and these are smart, intelligent people. I don't know how we got in, but we're happy to shout their name loud and proud. We love working with them. Amazing people.
All right. Well, you heard it from Steven and Shaun. Thank you, everybody, and I'll catch you in the next video. Let's press the end button before something else explodes.
Bye-bye.